Multiplying and dividing by powers of 10. Well, who is Mr. Dull? Mr. Dull will help us to multiply and divide by powers of 10. And there's Mr. Dull. This is a little trick that you can use when you're multiplying and dividing by a power of 10. And again, powers of 10 would be 10, 100, 1,000, and so on. So let's take a look at Mr. Mr. stands for when you're multiplying times the power of 10, you move to the decimal to the right, depending upon how many zeros there are in the power of 10. For example, if you were multiplying 4.8 times 10, there's 1 zero, so you would move the decimal one spot to the right. When you're multiplying times 100, because there are 2 zeros, you would move the decimal 2 to the right. If you were multiplying times 1,000, because there are 3 zeros, you would move the decimal 3 to the right. Now, Dull, Mr. Dull, Dull stands for divide to the left. When you're dividing by a power of 10, instead of moving the decimal to the right, we're going to move the decimal to the left. For example, if you were dividing 4.8 by 10, there's 1 zero, so I'm going to move the decimal 1 to the left. If you're dividing by 100, which has 2 zeros, you're going to move the decimal 2 to the left. When dividing by 1,000, which is again, these are all powers of 10, it has 3 zeros, so we're going to move our decimal 3 to the left. All right, let's try a few of these. Let's start with Mr. So multiply to the right. Here we're multiplying 8.52 times 100. There's 2 zeros. So what I like to do is just put my number on the line here, and we're moving the decimal 2 to the right. 1, 2. So it'd be 8,520. Here we're multiplying 61 hundredths times 10. There's 1 zero, so we're going to move the decimal 1 to the right. It would be 6 1/10. Really what you should do is you should erase that first decimal, and make it 6.1. Okay, 7.1 times 1,000. There are 3 zeros in our power of 10. I'm going to move the decimal 3 to the right. 1, 2, 3. Now here you'll notice we need to add some zeros. So it's 7,100. Our last example, we have 93 thousandths, 0.093. We're multiplying it times 100. There are 2 zeros. So I'm going to move my decimal, since we're multiplying, to the right. 1, 2. It'd be 9.3, 9 3/10. Let's try some division. So remember, when you divide, you move the decimal. When you divide by a power of 10, we're going to move the decimal to the left. So here we have 1 zero. I'm going to take 12.6, and we're going to move it 1 to the left. So it'd be 1 26 hundredths. Here's 18. Now, this is a whole number. It doesn't have a decimal, so I'm going to give it 1. Make sure you put it at the end. And we're dividing that by 100. It has 2 zeros, so I'm going to move it to the left 2 spots. That would be 18 hundredths. In the next example, we have 9,200. I'm going to give it a decimal here at the end. And we're dividing it by 1,000. So I'm going to move the decimal 3 spots because there's 3 zeros. 1, 2, 3. So that would be 9 2/10. In our last example, we have 53 thousandths. And we are dividing that by 10. It has 1 zero, so I'm just going to move the decimal 1 spot. That would be 53 10,000ths. All right, let's look at a few practical examples here. In the first one, the Chicago Cubs attendance is approximately 42,000 fans per game. Well, what would be their total attendance after 10 games? Well, we would be multiplying 42,000 times 10. So because we're multiplying by a power of 10, when you multiply, move the decimal to the right. So I'm going to take 42,000 and move the decimal 1 spot to the right. So after 10 games, the Cubs could expect to have 420,000 fans. Let's look at the next example. 10 children ran a lemonade stand all summer. and they made a total of $485. If they decide to split the money evenly, how much money will each child receive? So they're taking the $485 and they're splitting it 10 ways. You're dividing by a power of 10. And when you divide by a power of 10, we move the decimal to the left depending on how many zeros there are. So you would take that $485, move the decimal 1 to the left. That means that each child could expect to receive $48.50. So remember, whenever you're multiplying or dividing by a power of 10, and power of 10s would be 10, 100, or 1,000, or 10,000, so on, you can use Mr. Dull to compute the problems mentally.